Hey y'all, what's good? It is Kodey Stauffer here with the Playmakers Corner podcast, and we are continuing to do our player spotlights here. And I got some offensive players here today that I am going to be covering here and kind of giving notes on things that I noticed while I was watching their film, things that I think are good for them heading forward, and then things that I think that they can improve on a little bit as they continue to progress. Once again, these grades here are always out of 100 with various categories here, such as the 10-point categories as well as the 5-point categories as well. So, and just know, especially for some of the younger players that I'm going to be covering on this episode, part of it is going to be a little bit of consistency and just how many and how much time and if they're able to replicate it now that there's film on them, because we do have some freshmen that did make this episode that were a part of my draft where all of us at PMC went through and drafted every single player. If you've not done it yet, please make sure to listen to some of Coach V's player spotlights here. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it without further ado. So this very first player that I'm going to talk about here, Elijah Cromwell out of Cherry Creek High School here. This guy had a fantastic season last year as a freshman that was highlighted by his final performance of the season in a critical state championship game where he rose to the occasion, much like very few freshmen have ever done, especially on such a vaunted and deep Cherry Creek team. So, some things that I noticed here while watching his film is that he has very good vision. He sees the field very well. He cuts back at the right time. And we see this a couple times as he receives jet sweeps kind of from that slot back position where they get him in motion. And he kind of hits that across the field, sticks his foot in the dirt, and gets completely upfield. He's got incredible burst. He's got sweet wheels. He's really fast. And there's some plays where, like the state championship, where I got to see him live, where he keeps his legs chugging and just pushes forward. I did not see him get pushed back. If I did, it happened very rarely, if at all. And he was just a bruising, punishing back to watch in that state championship game. Now, he does get a couple of receptions here, but I am excited to see how his receiving skills are enhanced, utilized, and developed here, especially in this Cherry Creek system where they get pretty creative with their running backs. But overall, I think he just runs pretty damn hard and has some pretty solid vision and physicality to pair with it. When we look back at last year's stats here, he really did not get going until the postseason. I don't know if he was just their hidden weapon, if they were trying to keep him under wraps or something. But you look at the regular season here, and I mean, he only had, let's see if I can count this high, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. He had 10 carries in the regular season, barely getting close, barely eclipsing over 70 yards, I want to say, across all of those, and only one touchdown that was against Arapahoe High School. But overall, just did not receive a ton of carries. Not sure if it was because of health or anything like that, but overall, seriously, 10 carries, 86 yards. Very good average to carry into the postseason, but once it became the postseason, he did not look back. Grandview, 4 carries, 72 yards with a long of 53 and a touchdown. Erie, 4 carries, 79 yards, a long of 65 and a touchdown. Valor Christian, 10 carries, which became a career as well as season high for 62 carries and a score. And then finally in the championship game against Legend, a 13-10 absolute grueling battle here. He had 18 carries for 105 yards and 2 scores, all of those being highs as far as his career and season goes. Now, Looking at his receiving stats, he only notched 14 receptions for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he did have one play where they had him come in short motion and then immediately break back out towards the sideline and make a catch and score here. I want to say that was against Smoky Hill, which was not a close contest for the Bruins here. So really very limited touches last year. You look at his total amount of rushes as well as receptions, and he just got to 60 total touches last year, but made the most of all of those opportunities, getting 500 yards on just 60 touches. It'll be very exciting to see what happens now that some people have some film on him, as well as just kind of see what he does with a bit more volume here. He did notch some contributions onto special teams as well, but this is the running back, Elijah Cromwell, that we are talking about here. Now, his frame is at 5'11", 175 here, and I think that this is a good time to start talking categories here because we have 5 10-point categories, one being frame, then versatility, acceleration, straight line speed, and agility, which is cuts or change of direction here. So, when I look at Elijah here, something that jumps off the page immediately is his acceleration and his straight line speed. Now, I don't believe that I have a 40-yard time for him, and I don't have any of his track times, but you can see it in the film how quickly he breezes down the field. Definitely a sub-5 guy, as if that was ever in question, but I think he's really flirting with that 4.5 kind of speed, 4.6 almost definitely. And when he gets into the open field, it is really hard to catch up to him, as evidenced by his 50 and 60-yard runs in the postseason, where he breaks through that initial line and just turns on the burners here. Now, as far as the other 10-point categories go, for his agility, I gave him an 8. I think he does a good job of sticking his foot in the dirt and getting upfield, but I am excited to see where that lands as far as maybe seeing more jukes, maybe seeing more quick cuts, and kind of how he navigates defenders downfield as his volume increases. Now for his other 10-point categories, like frame, I put it at a 7.5. 5'11", 175, that's pretty all right, but he's definitely going to want to get a bit heavier here, especially if we're looking ahead to some of the offers that he did rack up in the offseason, which I'll get to in just a minute. His versatility here, I have it graded at a 6.9. As of right now, he is a running back. Now, they do have him out in the slot, which I did mention. However, I don't really fear him as a receiving threat, honestly. I think that his looks and opportunities came on some very good designs, and I do want to see his amount of receptions take a pretty significant stride before I go bumping up this versatility by a lot. And I also just want to continue to see growth of pass protection here and make sure that he can be a 3-down back before I go grading this super high. Also, he doesn't have snaps on any other side of the ball here, so that's why that versatility takes a little bit of a dip. But those are the 10-point categories here. As far as the 5-point categories, I want to talk about these. For those who don't remember, we have first level vision, which is initial blocks and the line. Second level vision, which is reading and reacting to linebackers and secondary. Then we got contested catching, hands, run after catch threat, and route running, which all kind of fall under receiving here. And then finally, we have balance and body control, elusiveness, tackle breaking, and pass blocking here. So I'll start off with some of the ones that are low. Basically, all of his receiving categories here, I have to be convinced I have to see higher volume. Contested catches, I gave it 2.5, which is still arguably a bit generous. 2.6 for his hands, which doubles out to about a 5.2 out of 10. Just haven't seen enough. So these grades aren't going to be super high. Run after catch threat, I do have it at a 3.55. I've seen him with the ball in his hands. I know what kind of a threat he can be. I know what his vision is. So I do give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there. And he does have a pretty nice catch and run at one point during this film. And then route running, I have it at a 2.6. Once again, might be a hair generous, but I do like that play where they do have him come in short motion and then break back outside towards the boundary here. So little grades there. Ultimately, that is the the most room for improvement out of any of these is going to be in all of those categories. Pass blocking here, I also have at a 3.4. I think that he has the intangibles here, but I think that he's got to get bigger and stronger before I really start to trust it, and I want to see more film regarding it. Working our way up here, not trying to tear everything down. Tackle breaking and second level vision, I have at both a 3.9 here. Tackle breaking, he does shed some tackles. He is hard to bring down. He keeps chugging. He keeps pushing forwards, but it also includes stiff arm and I just want to see more. Everything that's low is basically a volume thing here. He does chug though, but a 3.9, that translates roughly to a 7.8. So it's not like he's in a bad spot, right? He's knocking on that 3-star. He's easily 2-star in that tackle breaking, as well as that second level vision here. I want to see how he manipulates corners and safeties as he gets more carries that end up in that part of the field here. And I just want to see some growth in that area. Now, as far as things that I think he does very, very well here, I have his balance and body control / elusiveness at a 4.2 and 4.1 respectively here. He does have a few stumble recoveries that I think are worth noting that I did take note of watching through his film. And I also think that his kind of center of gravity is low. I think that as long as he stays low, it's going to be really hard to bring him down. He's going to be able to stay his course and continue to fight and push ahead. And I think that his balance and body control have a lot to do with that. And I think that he has a lot to build off of from that point. As far as elusiveness here, I did give him a decent grade here out of 4.1. Honestly, that should probably just be a 4. That's a little high. But primarily just how quickly he can change direction as he hits the hole here. I think that the athleticism is also there. So this might be a bit of a projection meets a grade here at a 4. But I mean, he's a great athlete here, and he has great body control. So in turn, his ability to change direction and his ability to cut is going to be kind of hand in hand with that. And I think that that will only continue to improve. Lastly, and his highest rated category here outside of speed and excel is his first level vision, which is reading initial blocks as well as the line. Now, he is a bit spoiled here. Not to throw shade, but that Cherry Creek offensive line is something special. So when they pave open lanes, I mean, it's really like the C parts, but a lot of freshman running backs would just try and veer over to the sideline every single time, but he does not do that. He's very smart. He knows where the holes are supposed to be. He's very patient, and he will wait for that hole to develop, even on the jet sweeps where it's a bit more outside and it may take a bit longer to be able to get that cut and go upfield. But also just out of the backfield, I think that he has done an excellent job at navigating the football field at an expert level here. So that 4.15 roughly translates to an 8.3 once you double that out of 10. So as far as room for improvement, he just needs more receiving work. He's got to get heavier, and he's got to get a higher number of reps here. Obviously, the Cherry Creek backfield is and kind of always will be very, very talented. So he's just got to make sure that he's getting his touches by doing what he's supposed to, protecting the football, and doing what he is asked first and foremost to keep him on the field. Then, for the things that he does very well, he's fast, athletic, great flashes of awesome strength and agility. And that's the thing is you can make people faster, you can make players faster, but you can't coach the speed and burst that Elijah Cromwell has here. And I think that a ton of the schools that ended up offering him understand that. Looking through his Twitter here, he has received a handful of offers here. Specifically, his most recent one on May 19th was from CSU. That was his 5th D1 offer, but he also has the University of New Mexico. He has Louisiana Tech as well. He's got University of San Diego State here. He's got Cal. I mean, these are great offers to have in your back pocket, and I think it's because he just got it done in the biggest game. They see a lot of room of improvement here, and while my grade maybe does not reflect where these offers are, this grade is where he is at right now. A lot of those offers are projecting ahead to the future, and they saw the flashes, they saw the speed, they saw the strength, and they're like, yeah, no, this kid can be great, but I do think that there's plenty of room for improvement, at least according to our rubric. And so overall, he grades out at a 74.1. That is pretty solidly a 2-star guy. And I think that what those schools think is that he will develop into a 3-star guy within the next year or two. And I agree wholeheartedly. This is only the beginning for Elijah Cromwell, and I'm very excited to continue covering his career here and seeing where he goes with this squad. Now, as far as some games to maybe see for Cherry Creek to see what his performance looks like and just kind of looking ahead to this fall 25 season here, I am most interested in these home games against out-of-state teams, Millard North and Skyridge. Skyridge was actually a team that Cherry Creek lost to last season out of Utah, I want to say. And so they'll be looking for revenge here. And I think that these out-of-state opponents that are pretty good in their own rights are going to be great tests for Elijah for him to show what he can do against national competition. Now, in addition to that, right, allegedly this Regis game might be a good one to see. We'll see how many touches he gets on that. And then you got a well-coached team typically in Pine Creek, but I'm looking at the Arapahoe squad. That front seven is always absolutely stellar, and I think that this game might be a little bit closer this year as they, hopefully have some health coming into that game, and that one will be on the road, so that is a very interesting one. And then Grandview was the team that Elijah had some great performances against last season, including a 50-yard run in the postseason. So I'm excited to see how they game plan for Elijah specifically, since he is the one that they have played the most, or they've been the opponent that Elijah has played the most. As far as comparisons go, I think that this is going to be really obnoxious of me here, but it's really hard not to see some Adrian Peterson in how hard he runs, his burst, his speed, and just not his super high level of involvement in the passing game. But obviously, when you have big breaking runs like that, back breaking runs even, it's going to catch the eyes of some folks on the college scene. And I am very excited to see what he does this season and what he continues to do through his career. The next offensive player that I'm going to be talking about here is Noah Lucero out of Roosevelt High School up in Johnstown here. I did do a film breakdown on DJ Davenport, but he has moved to Florida, so best of luck for him heading forward. But Noah here, it's just kind of been one great Roosevelt receiver after another. We kind of saw the mold being created here as Tucker Johnson in his last season was Noah's freshman year here. So he's gotten a ton of snaps here, and we're very excited to see how he takes over. But before I talk about Noah's game specifically here, let's go ahead and take a look at the stats here to see how his first couple of years of football has gone. So he has been doing football since his freshman year, and he just completed his sophomore season here. So still a lot to like. Now, from his freshman year, he put up 28 receptions for 493 yards, as well as 6 touchdowns. And then this past year, for his sophomore year, he put up 37 receptions for 674 yards and 6 touchdowns once again here. So that puts him on 65 receptions, 1,167 yards, and 12 touchdowns here. Now, I think some important things to note here is obviously during his freshman season, there were other mouths to feed here. And during this past season, there was a lot of graduates from that Roosevelt team here, and the offense just looked pretty different from what they were able to do in the past. So I think that is something that, should not be taken with a grain of salt when assessing his film. But taking a look at the film here, he is just the big body receiver that every team wishes that they had, honestly. and one that, helped bring that season to a close. And also, I am mistaken. I misspoke earlier. His freshman year was Hartson's last season. So this season, quarterback was a little bit of a battle here. So that is something that I considered a little bit while watching his film. But anyways, back to talking about his game. I mean, he just looks huge standing out there. He runs so gosh darn fast. And he is the second coming of Tucker, which is why I kind of made that bridge in my head here. But I mean, he's standing at 6'3", maybe even 6'4", 180 pounds. He'll be able to fill out a little bit more here. But I mean, at that height, there's a lot to like. And he's also very athletic at that height as well, which I think is something that is important and something that you can kind of see in some of these categories. But before I jump in on all of the categories, the 10-point categories here, I'm going to just say that frame, versatility, hands, and route running, which is separation and field awareness, are all of our 10-point categories here. So, that in mind here, he is sitting at an 8.6 for frame. He is going to want to fill out just a little bit more, 180 pounds. Obviously, he looks absolutely massive on the gridiron here, but we're going to still want to fill that out just a little bit. For versatility here, I put it at a 7.1. He has a few snaps at different positions. Actually, there's some very surprising positions here. He ended up, passing it a couple times, but he threw a pick, so that wasn't super crazy. He got just a few handoffs, nothing special. And then defensively, he kind of played at cornerback and notched a couple of interceptions. But, with his athleticism and his size, that's kind of where his 7.1 comes in. He's not the most versatile. It's not like he's a two-way threat at this point in his career, honestly. And I had a chance to evaluate him at safety or corner, but I just don't see enough of a case to build up to really review that entirely. So that's that. But his hands here, this is where things start to get good. I have his hands graded at an 8.4 here. I might even go an 8.45, a little bit of an edit in real time here. But, I mean, he catches everything that's thrown to him, and he works out of a lot of different places here, which is one reason why his versatility is somewhat up there. He works out of the slot as well as the outside receiver position, and he runs a handful of routes from both of those positions. So but like I said, he catches everything, and especially in contested catch situations, he is going to come down with that ball a lot of the time. And so I think that is something that definitely makes him special here and why he is graded as favorably as he is. Now, for the last 10-point category, we got route running here. I gave it a 7.4 here. He is not creating the most separation. I think that he is aware of the field. I think that he runs his routes at the proper depth. I don't think that there's anything wrong with his route running necessarily, but it's not as refined as some of the other parts of his game. And I think that there is a lot of room for improvement as far as his route running goes, throwing in some head fakes, throwing in some double moves, getting some jab steps in to try and get defenders absolutely lost on his routes versus the way that he beats you right now, where he just kind of catches it on your head, or he catches it and he's running with a head full of steam and he is not going to be caught anytime soon. So, yeah, I think that those are the things that out of 10, there is just a little bit of improvement to be made here. But out of his 5-point categories here, we got blocking, we got ball skills, which is adjusting to the throw, we got release, agility, speed, acceleration, contested catch, route tree, run after catch, jump ball, tackle breaking, inbound / body control. Obviously, you already know that the contested catch is going to be graded high. It's his highest grade. If you inflate it to out of 10, it scores at a 9. But on a 5-point system, it is a 4.5. It is the type of catch that he makes again and again and again and again, and he will continue to make. And I think that his size and strength have a lot to do with that. And so I want to encourage him not only to improve some of these other areas, but to not lose sight of what makes him special as a player and continue to do that. Speaking of, his jump ball is at a 4.45. That is an 8.9, which is another high grade here. I really enjoy watching him go up and get the football here. I just want to see it happen against maybe some taller cornerbacks or maybe even safeties and see if he can still pull that off against just, some taller athletes or maybe some more physical athletes at the safety position, maybe bringing it down in double coverage, stuff like that, just a little bit more. So we'll see how his doubles look as the season goes on. But like I said, they were a bit more of a run team first this past year, and it was definitely not the same offense that he was used to running the year prior with all of the crazy targets that he got. Ball skills, adjusting to throw. This is another high category for him here, a 4.4. This is a fantastic category. Once again, he adjusts to the ball very well in air, and he does it so well on his go routes, whether he needs to kind of veer that towards the sideline or whether he needs to kind of come in and square up. He does a great job of adjusting to the throw, and that obviously made quarterbacks' lives easier for Roosevelt this past season. Now, looking at some of his other categories here, there is room for improvement, not only in the categories out of 10, but for the ones out of 5. One of the grades that I had really low was his route tree. It's only graded out of 3. It is super simplistic, super simple. It's basically just crossers and goes, honestly. I want to see that expanded. There was one corner route, but nothing to write home about. I want to see a lot more choice routes. I want to see a lot more spot routes. I want to see a lot more as far as whips or inverted slants or double moves. I need this route tree to be expanded, and it's easily the thing that I think is holding him back, both from the grade of route tree, which helps get looks, but also in his route running that I think could see a shot in the arm from an expanded route tree. Now, tackle breaking, it is graded at a 3.4. He is hard to bring down, but I also think that, I just want to see a little bit more. It's graded at a 6.8 out of 10. I think that's good. That means that you can do it, but it's definitely not a staple of his game. Now, his blocking is pretty good. I have that graded at a 3.85, which is a 7.8, which is or 7.7, my apologies, which is pretty damn good. And his balance and body control is graded at a 4. So you add all of that up, his release sitting at a 3.6, it's fine, but once again, nothing too flashy or creative. Agility of 4, speed 4.3, acceleration 4.05, and then run after catch 4.2, jump ball 4.45, tackle breaking 3.4, balance body control 4. He grades out at a 79.3. He is knocking on that 3-star door, but he just has a little bit more to go, and he's going to have some opportunities to show his stuff this season. So Northfield, that's a team that they face to start the season. They always have some pretty rangy athletes, and so hopefully he draws a couple of matchups that kind of play to that. A couple weeks or 2 games later on September 12th, they play Ponderosa here. That could be a great opportunity to show what he's made of against a 4A opponent, somebody who he's pretty not familiar with. And so if he can turn some of those heads of those Parker players, then who always have athleticism at the skill position here, I think that could be very, very good for both his grades and just his recruiting in general. Then you go against Pomona, a team that has had a pretty solid secondary over the past few years, and then the likes of a Thompson Valley, which is obviously the premier program in the state on the 3A level as of right now. So those are some games that I am looking forward to when it comes to Noah Lucero. As far as comparisons go, I'm always going to lean on my NFL experience here. I'm not saying that this is 1-to-1, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of Dez Bryant here. Dez Bryant, he didn't have the most expansive route tree, but his jump ball capabilities made him one of the top receivers in his, time around the league. And that's kind of what makes Noah Lucero one of the top receivers in the league, is those jump ball abilities. But he has a great chance to expand his game and continue working and improving on it in the offseason. And I'm excited to see where he goes and grows. And finally, our last athlete that I'm evaluating for this episode, I'm going to have way more of a jam-packed one on the next one, but was just caught a little bit off surprise with DJ's transfer here. But getting back to it, we have a senior quarterback here, Zeke Andrews out of Ralston Valley, took the state by storm last year, but was the writing on the wall? Well, let's check it out. So, dating back to his sophomore season, he did sneak in a couple of snaps against Lakewood. He went 8 of 10 for 97 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. And then against Pomona, went 4 of 4 for 24 yards, and overall notched 5 carries for 44 yards on the season. Surprised that they didn't try and put him out on the outside for some jump balls, seeing as that he is standing at 6'6" and is a hooper. But obviously, once you realize what he was able to do his junior year that I evaluated, you will understand why this guy is the truth and why he was put into the quarterback role. So, for a quarterback, there's only 2 categories that are out of 10. That is frame and timing. And then everything else is out of 5. Arm velocity, out of 5. Arm power, out of 5. Short, medium, deep accuracy, all out of 5 here. You look at mechanics, lower body mechanics, upper body mechanics, decision-making in structure, decision-making out of structure, speed, which is scramble ability, agility, which is also part of scramble ability, throw on the run for power, throw on the run for accuracy, pocket awareness, pocket movement, and scheme versatility. So, all of that being said, let's talk about Zeke Andrews here and what he was able to accomplish his junior year. Last year, 215 of 307 for a 70% completion percentage, which is absolutely bonkers here. And he put up over 2,000 passing yards while also throwing 19 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions all year. So a TD to INT ratio sitting at just a little north of 6. And then on the ground, he added on another 8 rushing touchdowns and 700 rushing yards on the season overall, eclipsing 3,000 total yards as an offensive player last year, and just did not turn the ball over a whole lot. He did have a fumble against Thunder Ridge, but really kept good care of the football, and I think that's pretty evident in some of these big performances to start the season. In a shootout win over Erie, 15 of 25, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And then in a close win over Grandview in the second game of the season, 10-9, he went 20 of 30 for 135 yards and a score. Mullen, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Thunder Ridge, touchdown, had the fumble, but no picks. Even in the game against Valor Christian, which ended up being a loss, he went 29 of 46 for 258 yards and a touchdown, no picks. No picks against Chatfield. Denver South, 5 touchdowns, no picks. That was a big game. And a 1-point win over Columbine here, 3 touchdowns and no picks. And he did not end up throwing an interception until the postseason in a rematch against Arvada West here, where he kind of struggled here. And then in their loss to Legend, also kind of had a little bit of a tough game here. But, we'll chalk it up to just a little bit different. It's that playoff atmosphere. It was his first year as a starter here, his junior year. And I think that he's going to bounce back and be something special this year. And my grades, I think, reflect that. So when you look at his grades, or the grades that I gave him, I should say, it's going to look a little something like this. Standing at 6'6", 210 pounds, I gave his frame an 8.9. I think that's great height. I think that he could fill out a little bit more, but I don't think it's necessarily the worst spot to be in the world. And yeah, I think that that's just a pretty solid frame, all things considered. And then for timing, I actually graded this one pretty favorably here. I gave his timing a 9.1. I think that a lot of his throws on the boundary have a lot to do with his timing. I think the way that he's able to rifle in some passes over the middle, especially on some of those intermediate throws, has a lot to do with his timing and just knowing his receivers and knowing when they're going to be somewhere and being able to release the ball at the absolute perfect time. So his timing definitely impressed me. A 9.1, I mean, that is a 4-star grade. That is knocking on a 5-star grade, honestly, and something that impressed me very, very much while watching his film. Now, looking at some of his other categories here, heading into the 5-point area, I did have some room for improvement on him as far as his Lower body mechanics. I was not super impressed with his footwork. It felt super inconsistent to me. I felt like his dropbacks really varied, and not so much even on the pass scheme, but just on how he was feeling during that drop back here. I think that he does a good job of driving his leg, and I don't think that it ultimately interferes with what he's able to accomplish as a player. But I do think that it's worth investing into very consistent footwork, I should say. And so I gave that a 3.7. That was one of his lower grades here. And while his ability to run is very, very good, I would say, I wouldn't say that he has blazing speed, honestly. So I gave his speed a 3.5 here. I think that it's very serviceable. I think that he still can scramble and make some plays. But ultimately, I would not call him a dual threat necessarily yet, just because he's not. I don't think he's really going to be ripping off a ton of like 70, 80-yard runs like we've been seeing in the quarterback game, or at least against quality opponents, I should say. Now, for some of his other grades here, his agility, 3.85. I think that he's a little shifty. I think that he can move well enough here, so that's not really an issue. And his only other categories that were less than a 4 was throw on the run accuracy at a 3.8 and pocket awareness at a 3.8. I think that he should be, I don't think he's completely unaware. I think that he senses the pressure very, very well, but I think that he needs to care a little bit more about the pressure. And I think that that can kind of be attributed to pocket awareness, where he's like, okay, I'm big, I'll be able to bounce off or just push off of linemen. Well, you should get ahead of that and get those spots outside of the pocket, or go and climb the pocket a little bit better here. And that'll grow. Pocket movement, I have a 3.95. I don't think that there's anything inherently super wrong with it, but I do think that sometimes he is just hanging in there way too long. He'll get a little flat-footed. Once again, that lower body mechanics starts to show itself a little bit, I would say, in the pocket movement especially, and that there's plenty of room for improvement on that front. Now, for all the good stuff, I mean a 4 for throw on the run and power. Upper body mechanics, I like his throwing motion. I have that graded at a 4.1. His decision-making outside of structure is at a 4.1. I think that he's being smart. He's trying to keep the football safe, as evident by his turnover numbers or lack thereof. And I think that, he's able to get the ball to the receivers who should be getting the ball. Accuracy-wise, I have 4.2 on his short accuracy. There are some times where these passes just come in a little low, and I just want to see that improved a little bit. But his medium accuracy, I was so impressed by some of the throws he was able to make over the middle in traffic, working from right to left, working from left to right. I think that these ins that this Rowson Valley team is able to run is a huge part of their success, because, it's so hard to defend a perfect throw over the middle, and it's just going to be an easier throw than some perfect throws along the boundary, which he's also capable of doing, and he has done, and I kind of put that in the medium accuracy as well. And then lastly, his deep accuracy, I have graded at a 4.4. Actually, that's going to be a 4.3. I think that he's able to get the ball downfield. I think that it's in the right spot. I think that sometimes it could be a little bit better here. So that's like an 8.6 basically. Now, for velocity and arm power, these both graded out very, very similarly here. I have a 4.25 for arm velocity, and I have a 4.2 for arm power. Now, arm velocity is like spin and spiral, and that thing pops out of his hand. But arm power is the ability to throw deep comfortably. It does not look like he's straining or throwing his entire body into it. He is able to push the ball downfield, and it does not, once again, look strained is the very big thing here. Now, another category that he graded very, very high on is decision-making in structure. I think that he runs this offense excellently and expertly, just the way that Yanacito would want to, and I think he's going to hand him even more of the keys this year in order to keep that up. But his timing on his, these routes that are kind of by the boundary, these out routes, these comeback routes, as well as these in routes, and then these checkdowns and these spot routes and these shots that he takes, I think that he just looks very, very comfortable running this offense, and I'd be very, very comfortable asking him to make the reads that he is currently making. And as a college scout, I think that I would very much like the way that he goes through his reads and progresses. Now, for scheme and versatility here, Yanacito, he's very well received here at the pod, and this versatility of this scheme is very transferable to the college level, which I gave a 4.5. Overall, graded out at an 83.2. I think that is an awesome grade here. And overall, as far as improvements go, I said footwork, and that'll improve his control and agility at his height. I also want him to fill out his frame. And once he does fill it out, I'm a little worried that he'll be even more comfortable in the pocket, maybe bouncing around and taking some hits. But I want him to continue to improve that footwork, move around in the pocket better, and just get faster overall and become a stronger, better athlete in the offseason. As far as things that I really enjoy from Zeke Andrews games and things that I think he's doing well, he has great timing. He has good accuracy on boundary throws. Those are the type of throws that you want to see next level quarterbacks making, and I think are some of the most important ones that can be made. And the fact that he makes multiple over the course of his highlight reel is just a testament to where this guy is at. Additionally, I think he's athletic enough to be beneficial in a college scheme, and he's kind of already college scheme ready. So overall, 83.2. I'm not going to read through all of Coach V's grades here, but we're kind of in the same ballpark here. He has Zeke graded at an 84.7. He's very excited to see where this goes. And Zeke, shout out Zeke here, 4.53 GPA. Sheesh, that's what I'm talking about here. And you do want to find him on Twitter/X at Zeke Andrews 0 here. And yeah, I think that his recruiting is not nearly as explosive as it should be, honestly, but he has received an offer to CSU Pueblo. He has received an offer as well to the program out of the University of Sioux Falls, which we've seen a couple of players go to. But these D1 schools need to get on the Zeke Andrews train. Otherwise, you're going to be left out, and it's going to be too late for you to catch up. But Zeke Andrews, overall, I have him graded at an 83.2. I think right now, at least as far as college comparisons go, I'm trying to think of just kind of some of the more skinnier but very accurate quarterbacks here. I mean, if he fills out, that is 6'6" is how tall Trevor Lawrence is. And I think that is a guy who ran in structure very, very well and picked apart defenses back when he was at Clemson and even on the high school level. But Zeke, you're going to have to put on a little bit of weight, fill out a little bit more. And I think that Trevor moves just a little bit better than Zeke. But I think that is a good quarterback to watch for Zeke Andrews and somebody that can help him grow his game. That'll be all for this episode of the Playmakers Corner podcast. Once again, I'm going to get you with way more recruits on the very next episode. Just got to watch some game film of some of my prospects, as well as pick up a few more, honestly, and even everything out. But this has been a fun offensive set of players here. We started off with the youngest and then worked our way up through the class of 27 and even 26. So this has been a very fun episode for me. It's nice to get back to watching a little bit of film. But stay tuned because we got more Coach V player spotlights. We got Gino in the cut coming in. We got Gideon who's got players. We got Phoenix who's got players. Overall, just lots of exciting stuff to cover. Mason who's got some of his own. And plenty of offseason content to get ready before we really cover these players super in depth throughout the season and see how they perform on a week-by-week basis. Be sure to follow us anywhere that you're on social media, whether that's Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, X, YouTube, and anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Be sure to notify yourself by subscribing or following us, whether that be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or YouTube. But I have been your host for this episode, Kodey Stauffer, signing off. Peace.